Okay, we're back. Back in action. Even my face is back in action. Okay, need to continue with the event list, and then we'll attempt to break it down. He comes through you until he comes to the Urban Legends Lumar. After reading a few stories, the one that seems to be possibly useful. It seems one seems to reads the story of the horror behind the abandoned hall. With the maps included, and seems to run toward south past the right side of the library. When he gets to the corridor, it seems well at first, but then begins to degrade. He follows the ball until he hits a wall that seems to be in the middle. The wall seems to bifurcate. Cut an old locked door in. He hits a wall. Looks like it didn't finish the wall and hastily erected this wall. The wall also seems to see. How do I indicate that the wall seems to be in the middle? To be cutting off. I don't know if I say it. The wall that ends the hallway seems to be like abruptly in the middle. And I'm trying to decide how to articulate this. Maybe there was some paintings or something along the hallway that seems to be cut off in the middle. Okay, well, it doesn't cut off every painting or engraving. It just doesn't look like the wall was put at the end of the wall. One of the engravings or reliefs is cut in half. So it looks like the wall should extend past. So it looks like the hallway actually extends past it. Maybe it's a hall of fame, and there are, what should we call it? I told how to say stone to form a hallway, and I wanted to display some artwork, sculpture, or whatever inset into the wall. What would you call that cut out? I don't know if there's like a name for that, but Like it's like sconce. It's like a wall sconce, but niche, a niche. Okay, yes, I get it. I should have realized that. Is rebate a rabbit? Well, these terms typically refer to joints or grooves rather than display spaces. Hmm. Niche probably works. In my game, there's a hallway, which is sort of a hall of fame, and I was thinking that several of the that there were several beaches where the busts of famous, in this case, dwarves, were prominently displayed. This hallway is is ended in a hastily built wall that actually cuts one of these species in half. So I was looking for that term. It's a niche, whatever. Exactly. And the idea is they had built these niches and actually had the buffs inside them when they put up that wall. Of course, in the game lore, um, they were working on the hallway, and it starts to the quality starts to degrade, so it almost starts looking unfinished. But unifinish, unfinished. Um, but I was imagining the dwarves had already cut out the niches and had already installed the busts, even though the hallway itself was unfinished. No imagination from Brave Leo though. It just sticks right with whatever you ask it, which is kind of a good thing because I get kind of annoyed at ChatGPT or Grok when they start inferring stuff and start adding jokes and doing things like that. A Dwarven Hall of Fame where busts were placed in carved niches before construction was abruptly halted. The unfinished state of the hallway contrasted powerfully with the completed niches and installed busts, emphasizing the sudden disruption. Half block niche at the end, cut off by a hastily built wall, can be described as a truncated niche or interrupted niche, reinforcing the narrative of urgency and abandonment. The detail mirrors real architectural observations as empty niches in Renaissance or Baroque buildings, which sometimes symbolize incomplete or loss. Completeness or loss, a concept that enhances your lore. Anyways, so this is similar. And I also think of the gallery um in the Haunted Mansion where they have the busts whose eyes always follow you. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Maybe there are several niches carved into the wall, into the hallway wall, not the hastily hastily built blocking wall. Um, and several busts of famous dwarves were installed even while work was still ongoing in the hallway tunnel itself. And so the hastily built wall cuts right into one of the niches. Cuts right into one of the niches. Wasn't supposed to be there, and also adds a bit of dwarven culture to the hallway. Here's a concise way you could describe it. Your event list. Hallways lined with niches holding busts of famed dwarves. A Hall of Fame carved into stonework has continued, but the hastily erected wall abruptly cuts into one of the niches, leaving a half-finished bust jutting awkwardly from the plaster. South side of the hall was meant to continue beyond the barrier. Dwarven attention to detail, the abruptness of the wall without making it look like the whole hallway is unfinished, a visual clue for the player that there's something unusual beyond the wall. Do not slot this into your linear event. I'll do that. Give me a few more minutes and I'll have the whole event list. Okay. And this whole thing about the going into the dwarf mines is it's just like it's like I put so much extra work in here that it almost feels like when it's done, everything else will look like it was kind of hastily thrown together, and then this will look like it's like super detailed, and then it'll go back and anyways, seems to well, at first then getting follows. Okay, we're gonna do this differently. There are niches carved into the hallway with the busts of famous dwarves. At the end, a hastily erected. Well, okay. Abruptly cuts into one of the niches. It almost seems as though the hallway extends past the cutoff. Okay. Occasionally, a rumbling sound is heard, followed by a hiss and a clang. The walls crumble a bit each time. The room seems to shake a bit as the walls crumble each time the sounds are heard. Roland spots a few places where there seems to be something behind the wall. Roland kicks the wall, and a bit of the wall crumbles off, falls off. Looking around, Roland grabs a shovel and bangs on the wall really hard. The rest of the wall collapses, revealing a hidden door. Hidden, very sturdy iron door. Okay. Now, before I do that, I have to go back up to where he's at the book here. After a little more examination, the book's back cover seems to hide a small hidden compartment. As he tears off the backing, he finds a key in a little built-in pocket. Okay. Roland proceeds to the corridor. And then we can say it. Okay. This is actually kind of a long list for this thing here. These are almost like individual story beats, sort of. So I don't know. I don't know how many lines I'm going to use for each page and how I'm going to break it out just yet. Taking the key he found concealed in the he unlocks the door. He then turns the heavy what do you call that? What do you call the giant wheel that opens those doors on, say, a submarine? wheel or dog wheel. Okay. Well, in my game, behind this wall is a giant door, and I imagine it has a wheel like this. The idea was the dwarves had sealed up something inside of it and made this big heavy iron door and this was the only way I could think that you might open a door like this, even though it's this part of watertight door mechanism, the turning wheel. In effect, it is a sealed hatch, so that still works. Lock wheel sounds good. Sounds good to me. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna go with that. Maybe lock wheel. And with a bit of effort, pulls the door open. Actually, I could just put it dash because it's not, lock wheel is probably, I guess, not technically a word. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. What you find inside is some giant machine with multiple arms. Attached to the arms are multiple pickaxes, and a hose runs further into the rock. Steam comes up. Steam floats up, and the machine occasionally sputters. Nothing seems to happen as it looks like it carved a niche. It carved a gash into the rock, surrounding rock. So even though the arms are at full extension, they can't damage anything. Roland then follows the rest of the hallway out. Okay, Roland then sees a matching door. Let's see. Are wheels like this typically on one side or on multiple sides? Are typically located on both sides of the door. This allows the door to be sealed or unsealed from either side, which is critical. Battlestar Galactica's bulkhead doors feature a large wheel on each side, enabling the crew to operate them. Real-world Neo design, the primary operating wheel may be on the important side. Secondary wheels or levers are often present on the opposite side for redundancy and safety. Okay, so now the idea here is that there's an actual machine that's not really doing any harm, but legends arose that there was a monster of some sort. So I'm still thinking whether there should be a wheel on the inside. But if they already know what it was, they would be safe to put a wheel on the inside because it's not some monster or creature that's smart enough to turn the wheel. It's a dumb machine that doesn't do anything. There to be sealed unsealed from either side, critical for safety, operational flexibility. Logical and safe, it reflects their confidence. No need to fear the monster turning it. The presence of inferior interior rail reinforces that this was functional, well-understood barrier, not just a myth-driven seal. Okay, thanks. It works. I'm just thinking about it because there's doors on. There's a door on both sides to keep it from escaping. It was malfunctioning, and it was a mining machine with pickaxes on extended arms intended to cut down digging time, but malfunctioned and went berserk. But once it got embedded, so the dwarves could not. Yeah, I wonder. Door. I have to think of something because the gnomes wouldn't have done anything here. In fact, the dwarves were drilling and doing something here, so maybe they were building another secret passage or something. And now you could say it was unfinished, but I don't want it to be unfinished because I want it to be a way to get into the gnome kingdom. So I still have to think about that, and I will. But get to it to shut it off. And since it was being fed steam from a geothermal vent, it would never run out of power. But then at some point, it embeds one of the arms into the rock wall, which caused them to instead seal it. And eventually it carved itself a gash, and so now it doesn't do much other than sputter and clink. I already know that already. I'm trying to talk to it like a person, like you do Chat GPT or Grok, and Brave Leo doesn't really do that. Maybe their standalone deal does. You can go to their actual AI, their Leo deal, but it has its own deal now. Since the door in the machine was harmless, permanently stuck, placing a wheel on the inside makes it reflects their understanding that there's no threat of a creature operating it, and reports to the door as part of controlled containment, not a prison for something alive. Present material wheel adds realism and implies the door is intended to access or monitor the chamber again. Okay, thanks. The other side, and opens it with its own wheel. Exiting the chamber, he goes he starts going down a passage. Okay, so basically when Roland gets inside, he opens another door on the other side and starts heading down what presumably will open up into the Gnome Kingdom. Now, I do still have a little issue. I don't know if you could figure it out. Mainly because it probably requires some lateral thinking. What goes lateral thinking? Okay. Okay, lateral thinking. All right. So we're in the other side, effectively the Gnome Kingdom side, effectively the Gnome side. And what kind of problem would you encounter with regards to getting into the Gnome Kingdom? I'm just curious as to what your solution would be. Don't know the extents of LM thinking, so I'm wondering. Mm-hmm. So I wonder why it's happening. I see. Roland's cleared the abandoned hall, entered the door on the other side, and now it needs to actually access the gnome. The problem is really a lateral thinking obstacle, something that makes sense in the world and feels like a natural puzzle or barrier. A few ideas that come to mind without knowing all your details. Gnomes are small. Okay, that's fine. Okay, mechanical locker puzzle. All right, that's all of this is not really exactly what I'm getting to. I'll tell you what I'm getting to if you're watching the VOD or you're actually in here watching or listening. But okay, so basically the idea is the dwarves have made this hallway, and the idea is that it gets into the gnome kingdom somehow. What would be the problem with that? The problem would be with that is that the gnomes would not want the dwarves tunneling into their kingdom. So the idea here is how do I still get him into the gnome kingdom side? They built this hall. Obviously, it would have stopped at some point. They would have something, either some secret door that maybe they're making another smuggler's gate, another secret passage, or some such thing. Vertical drop, cultural bank. Only allow entry if rolling demonstrates. Uh, and cleverly inside the entrance. Um, that's probably a good guess. And the cultural behavior thing is close. Still not getting at what I'm thinking, which is interesting. I can give you another guess before telling you what I'm thinking. Maybe the problem is that mechanical something that depends on the perspective timing. Can't enter unless something unusual with himself. He can't enter because unless he respects some unseen rule, he can enter. Okay. Um. Here, let me give you another clue or a hint. This isn't about stopping Roland specifically. Um. It will affect how he gets into the kingdom, but it's not generally about an obstacle one has to overcome. Well, honestly, it probably will be, but um, let's say in general, what's the problem with the dwarves gaining? What the in general? What's the problem? Let's see. Let's see if it comes up. Actually hitting comma, size and scale mismatch, environmental boundary. Uh, um, 4 is pretty close. And I guess I can go ahead and tell you. Um, tell you. Uh, what what did I say about the relation ship between dwarves and gnomes. And it might not come with this either. It might go because the history that I wrote was that the dwarves and gnomes were one race and they split up and stuff. But that's not really what I'm getting at. I'm trying to get it to say, oh, you mean because they hate each other or because they're at odds or there's a rift, they are not going to let dwarves into their kingdom. Maybe this will give it a clue. It's kind of a curious, weird thing to me. What is the problem? Greetings, John Rivers. It's not really so much a problem with me. Okay, so I'm coming up with a way for. Okay, so Roland, without trying to go into the whole story and everything, because there's a lot to explain. This dwarven character is trying to get into what's called the Gnome Kingdom. So the dwarves and the gnomes are in two different spaces underground, and they're kind of joined together, and but they're separated. So the dwarves basically blocked off the Gnome Kingdom so that they wouldn't have to interact because the dwarves and the gnomes hate each other, and because of that, they wouldn't just let a dwarf come into their kingdom. So I'm trying to get ChatGPT to come up with this idea of what would stop and what would be the obstacle or the problem that Roland would have to face, and Roland has to face the fact that they wouldn't let dwarves tunnel into their kingdom. So then I can come up with an idea of, well, okay, so how does it do it? Well, maybe I've already thought of a way because it's the other way to get in. There's another way to get into Gnome Kingdom. It's called the Smuggler's Gate, and it was a secret passage that was built specifically so that so political stuff, couriers could travel through, or smugglers, or whatever. So it was actually made just so that there'd be a back channel open in between the kingdoms, so that so somebody could go through, and that's called the Smuggler's Gate, and that's another way you're gonna have Roland get into the Gnome Kingdom. So I was trying to get it to say, what's the main obstacle here? Let him swim in from the sewer system. That's a thought, but I already have this idea here. But anyways, let's see if ChatGPT comes up with the right thing. You mentioned the dwarves and gnomes don't exactly get along. There's tension, cultural differences, maybe in historical grudges. That means the problem isn't a puzzle for Roland. It's as simple. It's that the gnomes have designed their kingdom to keep out outsiders, especially dwarves or anyone coming through dwarven halls at a distance or in check. So the access issue is built into the gnome society and their rules for interacting with others. Roland's challenge is partly navigating the behavioral cultural boundary, not just physical obstacle. And it's getting it right just because I gave it the context. Yeah. The smugglers gate is a corridor that the dwarves had specifically. Okay, so basically, the idea is that they're a race of halflings. Okay, we'll say halflings. I'm just using terminology. I'm not that deep into fantasy that I know everything, but I know that the hobbits were called halflings in Lord of the Rings, and it's a race in like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. But but anyways, so the idea of these halflings, right? And at some point, part of these people they get greedy, and some of them get really greedy and power hungry and evil and stuff. And so there's this rift that forms, and so the part that's greedy and evil and stuff, they head south, and then the ones up north, they eventually cut them off by sealing all the entrances, except for the one smuggler's gate which they built. And eventually, the idea is that they changed over time so much that they're practically two distinct races now. Gnomes are actually much shorter than dwarves, and they're lazy. They steal a lot. They have bad dispositions. They're all around kind of bad guys, and dwarves are not. They're orderly. They're nice. They're polite. They could be gruff, I suppose, and they're really good craftsmen at building halls. Now, of course, the dwarves aren't like it's not like exactly like Lord of the Rings where they build these huge halls. In fact, Roland is a his dad was a giant and his mom is a dwarf, and so because of that, he is like 6 feet tall. He's like the size of a full grown man, and he's only about, we'll say, 11 or 12, and So they what was I getting to? Because I kind of lost my train of thought now. Um, well, anyways, so so they basically hate each other, and so he has to get into the Gnome Kingdom because okay, so he was actually kicked out. He was actually kicked out literally for being oversized. He's so big that he was so clumsy that he caused like a cave in and stuff, and they didn't want to put up with him anymore. And they kicked him out. And so at the point in the game that you encounter him, he comes back and for one more time to see if they'll let him in again, or at least just to talk to them. So he goes in there, and before he actually goes inside into the dwarf mines, a old dwarf stumbles out, and he practically collapses in his arms. And he says his dad is actually in the Gnome Kingdom, because the Gnome Kingdom, they're the villain in the game. He's abducting citizens and tourists. By the way, I have this whole big story, so it's a lot of stuff in there. But basically, this is a magic kingdom that turned into a tourist resort, right? So they don't have to tax the citizens. And and lately it's been falling on hard times. And it's rumored that this wizard that was banished from trying to do some stuff to conquer different realms. Um, that he was banished, and that there's a rumor that he's back. Of course, he's back. But so what was I getting to? Anyways, I have this whole thing. If you watch the streams for any length of time, eventually you'll hear more about the story and stuff. And because I'm always talking about it, I'm always going off and doing that, even sometimes to the detriment of actually working on the game. And all I'm doing here is here. Let me show you. That is, if you're still here. Okay, so this is Redot. This is a fork of Godot 4.3. I got the one that's 4.3. They're actually up to equivalent to Godot 4.5, and they call it version 26.1 because it has to do with their numbering system of releasing updates every quarter, year, or whatever. So 2026 quarter one, Redot LTS 26.1. Okay. So the game right now is just a kind of a almost super basic like choose your own adventure style thing. It's not even a full choose your own adventure because this game is going to be eventually be like a fully interactive point and click adventure. And I'm doing it in phases, iterations, where I start with the simplest. Which the simplest was the choose your own adventure style. Ask me for brainstorming and problem solving if you want. I like having you on the screen while I work. Oh, that's cool. Don't worry about it. I always get distracted by everything, and it's fine. Especially when I'm talking about my own game. I love to talk about my own stuff, so it's cool. Visual Studio and Unreal Engine. Um, Godot, you could say, is similar to Unreal, I guess. Obviously, I think Unreal is probably a lot more advanced than Godot, but it's a 3D, 2D, and 3D game engine, and of course, this is Redot, which is they did a fork of Godot at some point. Remember, I don't know if you remember hearing about the politics where they were like throwing people off their Twitter or off of the Discord and stuff, the community managers, and because people were saying you guys shouldn't be worrying about politics and crap, just focus on the game. They were doing the rainbow stuff and all that, and the guys that developed Redot or Redo or whatever, however you want to pronounce it, decided that this was the right time to fork because they were going to do it anyways because I guess some long-standing issues that they wanted to fix, and so they forked it, and now I'm using it. So it's functionally equivalent to Godot, although this version that I'm using right now is just based on 4.3, and they're up to like 4.5.1 or point 0.2, one or the other, 4.5 anyways of Godot, which I'll upgrade here soon sometime, but I'm busy with this anyways. So this is a basic. There's a description up here if you're not looking at it, and then there's a thing that tells you what number to hit. That's all it does. Just really super basic choose your own adventure style setup. So I'm working on what I call the narrative path. So basically, I have all the events, all the story beats for my stories. So the whole story is done, and I'm implementing the decision points now. And this is kind of taken a little while of time. But once I'm done with this, once it works, see it says while working at the library, John is putting books back on the shelves when he notices the book has fallen on the floor behind him. He picks it up, noting the hole it left in the bookcase, and proceeds to put it back, when it seems to jump out again. Okay, so this is just like events. This is like stuff that happens. It's not a narrative. Like you're not reading like a book right now. So once I'm done with this, what I call the event pass, then I'm going to go back through it and rewrite all of the actual description to actually read like you're reading a book. And then each of the subsequent phases, I'll add stuff onto the engine. Like the next phase is I'm going to be separating the navigational choices from the actual choices, you know. So when you're going somewhere, because eventually the navigation is going to be separate from all that stuff anyways. And then at some point, I'm going to introduce a text parser, and then later on, introduce graphics and point and click and all that stuff. So it'll be a long time, way longer than if I had just decided to make the full thing. Have you missed messages and such? I haven't done anything visual, so I couldn't I can't really tell you. No mesh, no 3D. In fact, I'm not even really considering 3D exactly. You can see the objects here are 3D objects, but that's just because I was thinking in the future I might decide to make the backgrounds like 3D environments instead of just like 2D background paintings. But that's far in the future, so I might even take these back out because Godot's node system, it works for 3D and 2D both. So if you know the one, you know the other, and I don't actually need to put this placeholder stuff in there. So it's not going to be there's not going to be graphics for like a long time, depending on how far I get and how fast I get this done. Like I'm supposed to get this event pass version done by the end of March, and I'm even a little bit behind. Yeah. So the event pass is essentially like gray boxing, you would do for a 3D. But I don't actually need the placeholders there because I'm not doing graphics for a while, like I said. So I may even take those back out. I think I can. I think I can put this on the web. I think it'll compile to HTML5. I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure that Godot does too. And so it'd probably be better if I didn't have the 3D stuff, unless the game is actually 3D anyways, unless it has some 3D stuff in it. So probably be good just to take those out. I'm not doing anything visual right now, which is why I probably don't have that many viewers on the stream. But I am going to start. Eventually, I'm going to start doing some graphical wise stuff. I'm going to start doing some like concept art stuff. I used to be able to draw cartoon characters. I'm not. I'm okay at drawing, or I'm okay at copying stuff. I'm not like a great artist or anything like that. And in fact, I even gotten a little bit worse over the years. My hands, I don't know what you call it, some sort of nervous thing, whatever you want to say, where my hands aren't steady. They tend to shake, and so now even when I pick up something, when I try to write something, it's super shaky. No, I don't have like a. It's not like a Parkinson's or like a disease or anything like that. It's just yeah. And so and this functions this way. And so the idea of doing iterations is that at the end of each phase, I'll have a completely working version. Now, each phase is going to be the same game, but each time I'm going to upgrade the engine, I'm going to um, quote unquote engine, framework, whatever you want to call it. It's like if you look at the script here, this is called a room script. All it has is just a string for the ID, a string for the title, a string for the chapter, and a string for the actual description. In fact, it doesn't even have a separate thing for the command, the choices, like the choice numbers. So I actually have to put that in the description in there, or else you won't know which button to push. Eventually, I'm going to introduce a parser, and the parser, the first version of the parser is just going to take the same choice numbers But instead of just hitting the number and going to the new room, you have to hit 1 and enter because it'll receive it as a command and like parse it, quote unquote parse it. And then another phase I'll add more verbs and things so it works functions as a proper text adventure. Anywho, so what I'm doing here is mostly story, even though I'm actually am working on the game here. In fact, I got these lines draw to each of the rooms. Technically, these are rooms, but because of the way this functions as a page. So this is the page text here, which is in the description, which is what you see when you actually run the game here. I'm also this is a special scene that contains all the nodes and all the rooms, all the pages are in JSON format. So when I load it, it loads it in here, and then I can manipulate it in there visually. And if I press this button, which is a run scene, current scene, um, I'm actually planning this to be a tool. So I can zoom in, I can pan, I can select. I can select multiple with the box select. It doesn't do anything other than that yet, though. So I have to put in a button for save code, and I have to. There's a bunch of stuff I have to do to that, which I'll do later. So I decided I'm just gonna go ahead, make sure that this event pass is done. When it's done, then I'll start reintroducing more visual stuff back in the stream. I'll start doing maps. I'll start doing some sketching for some characters, stuff like that. But right now, I just need to get this part done, and I'm actually behind, not because of you, but just because this chapter is taking a lot. And the reason I say chapter is because I grouped story beats together. Originally, I originally had like 94 story beats for the whole story, and I was starting to put decision points in, and it took me, I don't know, it's like almost a year that it took me, and I'm not even 20% into the stupid thing. I was going, this is taking too long, so I decided to quote unquote reboot phase one, and I grouped all the original 94 story beats into 20 chapters, give or take. Right now, it's down to actually 18 chapters, and a chapter usually has about 4 story beats. It can have 3 or 5 depending, but mostly they're mostly 4 story beats each chapter. Anyways, that's the big overview of the whole thing. And so at this point, right now, I'm doing a story part where one of the methods I have 3 methods to get into the Gnome Kingdom. One of them is the Smuggler's Gate, which will involve some wall sconces and a certain configuration. The Smuggler's Gate was actually built so that they could have a back channel to the Gnome Kingdom, so just in case communications open, and smugglers actually used it. I haven't done anything with audio either. Like I said, at some point, one of the phases I'll be adding audio visuals, and it'll be the form of it'll be like some Creative Commons for public domain audio that plays in the background. Just when I start getting stuff in there, and then the images, there'll just be some thumbnails that I'll put in alongside the text, and eventually they'll turn into backgrounds. Eventually, I'll have full music and everything, and I want it to be like a full 2D point and click that with like full cartoon animation and stuff. And then if I ever get far enough, if it looks like I'm gonna be getting that far, the ultimate end would be making 3D environments that are textured to look like they're hand painted, which will give me automatic parallaxing and positioning in 3D space, and where the characters are sprites, are 2D sprites, animated sprites. But I haven't actually done anything audiovisual for this yet exactly. Anyways, let me close this. Shoot, I'm almost close without saving. It's almost time up for me today. I usually stream every weekday. I do it in 2 parts because I used to do it at 3 or 4 hour session, and then I'd have a break in between. And sometimes it would be like a super long break, and I'd go over time and stuff. And I find out that people just like went away and never came back when they did that. So when I split them up into 2 streams, and I still have an hour break, but when I do it into 2 streams, I find that people end up coming back or they don't leave or whatever. So, I'm on the east coast of the U.S., so I stream from 11:30 to 1. Eastern U.S. time, and then I take a break until no 11:30 to wait. Let me think. No, yeah, 11:30 to 1, and then at 2 o'clock I stream till 3:30. You get 10 free credits every day, so it adds up after you can use remix or extend to add intros and outros, etc. If you want, just a note. 10 credits for what from what? Particular AI, I guess, or what are you talking about? Some music software. And if you notice me looking to the side, it's because I have a secondary monitor, which is actually just a small TV. Use this as a way to log progress. Well, yeah, this is exactly what I'm doing, but I'm making sure. See, yeah, see, okay. So I have this deal about the cross purposes thing. Okay, I don't necessarily know if I'll ever make any money or anything. I was looking at all the free games out there and how hard it is to compete and how hard. I watch some of these guys making games and they get their games on Steam and stuff. And even if they're successful, they don't really make that much money. I mean, there's a few that make a lot of money, but most everybody else kind of don't. And I'm kind of going with all the free options and stuff out there. Why don't I just kind of focus on the game itself and streaming my game? So the streaming part is as important as the game, but the game is still the the motivator, right? In other words, I'm not. If I was just doing for streaming, I'd probably, or if I was just doing this for like YouTube or something, I'd probably do politics or some such thing that actually automatically gains a lot of viewers. You know, I want to make my game. Hopefully, I can get it support. Yep. So my thought is, if I do this long enough and people start liking the streams and more people start coming in here, maybe I can get some support. You know, like use Patreon or something. So man, I'm 33 unemployed. I'm just trying my best to make peace with the odds, but the off chance outshines it. Yeah, that's that's kind of my view about it. I'm considerably older than 33, even if I don't look like it. Let's just say, but I'm also unemployed. I live with my dad basically, and I'm just thinking, uh, I need to do something. I need to finish this game because this game has been bouncing around in my head since like 2005. I mean, it's old. Story idea is way old. And over the years, I've tried to make something from it, and each time I get to a stopping point, or I don't know. And 2019, I had started making videos that had to do with making the game, and so I started going through some tutorials like Unity and some other stuff. And I started doing some sketching, some drawing, and some a little bit of modeling in Blender and stuff. And those I have something like 600 videos, and those just don't hardly get any views at all. So I restarted this, and I found that this way seems to be a better way. Yeah, Kickstarter would be good too. You need a good prototype, and we'd be able to ask for support. Right. Well, the same way. I don't know how far mine's gonna go. I might get to a point where I just kind of quit it because I'm too lazy or something, or maybe I hit a wall of some sort, or whatever, or maybe I just do it so long and I still don't get any like support, and so I might just go, forget about it, whatever, you know. I kind of quit easy. I'm kind of lazy sometimes, but I'm finding out that I think this will work. I think people will watch it because I'll start making progress. I'm already making progress. I'm already halfway through this. I'm already halfway through phase one event pass. So I'm about 55%. I got 11 chapters done. Um I got 7 more chapters, and I'm working on chapters 11 and 12, which are part of the same story arc. And then chapter 13 is its own chapter. And I'm supposed to have all 3 of those chapters done by Friday, which it doesn't look like I'm going to get to today or this week. I'm just barely making it through this chapter because sometimes it's really hard that you have to come up with stuff, right? The way I come up with stuff, I'm watching a show or I'm reading a book or I'm hearing a song or something. I get idea popped in my head, and eventually it persists and I roll it around in my head until I get so much details that I might want to do something with it. If you put in a pie chart, how much time do you spend on the story? Right now, it's mostly I'm spending most of my time on it. I mean, literally, I'm actually building the game here. That's why I have these pages up here. I'm actually working on. See, see this little group in here represent the what I call the lovers passage. Basically, there's this story about Roland's maternal grandparents and how they were his grandmother is a gnome and his grandfather's a dwarf, and so they got married and they hide in secret. So the passage to get into the gnome kingdom is actually through the library, and the library has a secret passage set up by his grandfather that built a home there so that they wouldn't be so, so they wouldn't be don't let it consume me. It's 50% of the game. Don't let it cause burn. No. That's not going to happen here. It just part of it is just the progress I'm making. I mean, I can already see the progress. I can see it because of how much I got finished and stuff. So and basically I have the kind of the major story points here. Let's go down to what is it? That's chapter 12. Let's try not chapter 12. Let's try chapter 13. I call it Terror in the Skies. It's basically just there's a battle in the air with a winged unicorn and a and the Black Knight on his dragon. So all of this is already done. So I got these chapters all the way down to the last chapter, which is called John Lands a Date. I mean, it's a comedy adventure, and he wants a date with the princess, and so they go through this whole rigmarole. But and that's just kind of like the end of the game here, of the story. This is not even a real chapter, really. This is kind of an end cap, really, in a sense. But here, let's go to this one, the Battle for Enchanted Lands. Here, this just talks about they have this battle. Basically, the villain is builds a machine to open multiple portals, the size to be able to march armies through and be able to conquer all the realms that he can open. And so this is he's building on the castle grounds, and we have this big battle at the end. I mean, it's not really that much as far as the story goes. It's just kind of the end thing, and John and Max kind of struggle, and Max kind of disappears basically. But I have the whole story here, right? And so as I make the progress, I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna get this done. Although, like I said, the deadline I set for myself was the end of March, and it looks like I'm kind of behind now. I was supposed to finish 11 and 12 last week, and I was supposed to work on 13 this week, and we're already halfway through this week, and I still haven't got done with chapter 11 yet. So we'll see. But I'm working on it, and yeah, that's where I was working on here. Exiting the pasture. Okay. So, shoot, I'm supposed to be off now, but I need to finish this up real quick before I actually stop the stream. Don't exactly get along. There's tension, cultural differences, historical grudges. Builds a gnome society. That's what I was trying. Well, maybe for me, what happens is if I don't have a deadline, I kind of don't do stuff, or I kind of just don't care. Me doing this, even if it causes a little bit of stress, just means that it's putting me on track. So even if I finish at the end of April, say it takes another month, at least that'll be sooner than if I had not done this ways. So I've structured this. The whole thing about the phases and stuff, I mean, If I had started out with the end result, which would be a fully interactive point and click adventure, either straight 2D point and click or with the 3D environments, like I was saying, would not take near as long as this does with all the phases. But this is the only way I can get my head wrapped around enough to do anything. Because when I start thinking about, like, I have all the stories, all the character arcs and stuff, but when I start thinking, okay, so well, how do I do this? How do I, what do I do here? What do I do here? I was going, okay, I'm gonna reduce it to the phases. I'm gonna add on each phase. Like I said, I'm gonna separate the directional choices from the actual choices in phase two. Phase three, I'm not. I can't remember exactly what phase three does. I'll have to actually pull it up. But at one point, I'm gonna add in multiple player characters. Oh yeah, the third one is actually separating, making them actual rooms, like each location an actual location. So basically, it'll be the same text, but multiple it'll have multiple descriptions, multiple choice sets for one location, so that it more resembles a room. It'll still act exactly like it does now, not functionally any different, but I'll be restructuring it so that the rooms are actually like rooms instead of pages now. So there's like the castle location, for instance, and the castle um, uh, you do different things at different times at the castle, and so if I put them all into like one file, now more resembles a proper location. At some point, uh, at some point, I'm gonna have inventory. Like I said, I'm gonna have a parser. I'm gonna start adding graphics, sound gradually, and I'm also gonna expand the story a little bit. Uh, that glosses over a few things that I wanted to include in there, so that when it's done, I'll have at a certain point I'll have playable versions. So even if I manage to quit halfway through, maybe I got to the text parser version and it's got inventory, it's got puzzles, it's got everything pretty much complete as a text adventure, and maybe I get kind of burned out at that point and say, well, at least I got this done, and I don't need to go on with it or whatever. That probably won't happen, but it could happen. But the point is I'll have all this. I'll have each of these done. Anyway, so let me go back here. So, okay. That's what I was trying to get you to come up with. So, yeah. They wouldn't just let dwarves build a tunnel into their kingdom. So, I have to figure out how does it actually lead to the gnome kingdom. One of the ideas is perhaps they were building a second smuggler's gate, but there could be other ways that this works. So what do you think? And what do you think if you're listening? Different ways to get into the gnome kingdom, especially when the gnomes don't want the dwarves in there at any rate. So there's going to have to be a thing. Maybe there's a secret. Maybe it's another smuggler's gate that they were building or something, or maybe they were just going to build up to a certain point and actually not go into the gnome kingdom, but somehow because the rock is thin, or there's a thin like amount that it's easy to get through. Anyways, I gotta get out of here in just a second, but I want to see what this comes up with to give me some ideas. Get into their water supply. Yeah, that might be a good way. It's a separate deal. Maybe this gallery, it's built to be like I just thought this up, but it just built to be a gallery, like a hall of fame of their most famous dwarves, and they have these wall niches with the busts of all these famous dwarves, until the machine went nuts and they had to block it off. But So that might be the deal. The deal is when they finish the tunnel, they were going to actually go into the Gnome Kingdom. So maybe they go through, like you said, the water system or something. That might work. Access is still plausible in world secret or co-opted tunnels or worse started second smuggler's gate, but the gnomes intentionally allowed or even built part of it themselves. Cultural workaround disguise. The entrance might only be open if world access is non-threatening. Okay, indirect access. Didn't actually build a direct tunnel. The abandoned hall just hints at natural boundary like a vent, a ladder, or a hidden passage, which gnomes maintain or have used themselves. Partial collaboration. Okay. Well, I'll call you a friend, I guess. I'm talking to ChatGPT. A friend suggested that maybe he gets in through water supply or sewers. Although I'm not too keen on these sewers themselves because not interested in having Roland wading through sewage. So maybe that could be a spring or underground river that feeds the gnomes' water supply, and maybe the rock walls are thin somehow, or maybe they have an opening. Maybe they have a hatch to the underground river because maybe they both use the water, and that's actually not a bad idea. Or maybe the dwarves build a hatch because maybe they also get water from the same underground river. I haven't gotten that far. I'm not thinking in terms of trash and sewage and stuff, not the kind of the nasty stuff, even though they're nasty characters. So more than likely, they probably just dump it in their houses or dump it in some communal dumping area or something. They're pretty lazy. They're unclean. So stuff like that. But I like this water supply idea. There's an underground river maybe, and maybe this Hall of Fame actually connects to the underground river, and so Roland can actually go through that. Oh, that's the thought. He'll have to have some blueprints or something that shows him that the water goes through the same area. Good evening, Rook. It looks like you're just in time for me to be done today. So, and John Rivers, meet Rook, because he's on YouTube as well. That's really elegant solution. Keeps physical path, shared water source, hatch. Dwarves and gnomes both tap the same underground spring or river. Roland discovers a dwarven hatch that leads to the water channel, which flows toward the gnome kingdom. He can navigate at dry sections, small ledges, or stepping stones, enough to make an adventure not unpleasant. The gnomes never reject because it's technically a utility channel, not a main entrance. Thin rock barrier, secret tunnel, thin, naturally eroded. Main attached. Combine idea, Smuggler's Gate, water route. I don't think I'll do a second Smuggler's Gate, though. I like this idea. And a beautiful spring in the hall. Yeah, it could actually be even a fountain, right? And access could be via a hatch in the ground, basically, or in the floor, the flooring, you might say. And then he can navigate his way in there. He's got to be able to know that he can get there from here, though. So I'll have to put that somehow in the some of the documents and things. This path is particular because he's following an urban legend, basically, that says that there's some sort of monster behind this wall in this hallway, and it's just a legend because they don't really know what's behind it. It's like some kind of untold terror or something, and so Roland manages to get through it because the wall is crumbling and there's this big door, and he finds the key to open the door, and then the door is kind of this old machine that originally like went berserk because of a malfunction, and they couldn't directly turn it off. So what they did is they sealed it in, and it eventually cut a gash into like a rock wall or in a piece of rock, and eventually so much so that it didn't have anywhere else to cut. So occasionally it sputters and makes noises and stuff, and nobody dares go into the hallway because they think it's something, something scary like a monster or something. And really managed to get in there, and really it's just this machine, and the machine isn't even really working exactly. And so then he's able to go into the Gnome Kingdom here. Okay, so I really do have to go, but let's see if we can just going down the passage. At the end, I was going to have the deal where it started degrading and work when it stops at this wall, but at the same time, um, maybe it's not so much degraded exactly. I'm not really sure how I want to handle that, but it doesn't really matter that much. At the end is a fountain and nearby a hatch. We'll say, I'll just go ahead and say this even though I didn't actually have it in the other lines above. Looking at the maps, it suggests the water line possibly going into okay. It suggests an underground river heading into the Gnome Kingdom. Roland opens the hatch, notices the river, but also a small ledge he can barely fit into, and walks He walks for a while until he sees a similar hatch above him. Similar hatch above him, and opens it. Coming out, he comes out. Okay, so he comes out in a obscure grotto where nobody seems to be. Now, this is essentially the same grotto that he would come out with if he used the Lover's Passage or if he used the Smuggler's Gate. Lover's Passage is an interesting thing too, because the idea was that his grandfather was a dwarf and his mom was a gnome, and he manages to get into the Smuggler's Gate, and he sees this gnome maiden. She's like much nicer than all the other gnomes. Gnomes are greedy, they're ugly or whatever, and she seems really nice. They fall in love and they get married, but they can't tell anybody. So he builds them a house in between the Gnome Kingdom and the Dwarf Mines, underneath the mountain, and he puts it in behind a bookcase. There's a bookcase entrance where you have to actually take a book out and you have to insert its spine in before it will open. And so I had that, and it opens into the same grotto. So he makes this passage so that they can go to back in between kingdoms without being seen. So there's the three, and then of course this is the abandoned hallway one, and then I'm writing to event things because I got to put decision points in here and make a few pages in here. But this looks like it's good. The story beats are good, but I have to actually quit now because I'm kind of late. I'll have to make dinner here in a sec, And let me check this out here. Yeah. So yeah, he goes into the underground river, follows it to another similar hatch, which opens up into the same grotto as the Lover's Passage. But it looks like my time is up today, so we'll have to figure out decision points tomorrow. And yes, I don't know if it bugs you or not, because I think it bugs some people. I do say thanks to the AI. I know it's an AI, I know it's a machine, but if they're gonna eventually be acting like actual people and stuff, they'll react naturally. You go to a robot, there might even come a time where we come to a robot and we're talking to them and we don't know that they're a robot. It'll be that good. I think AI will get that good. And I'm just kind of going. It's kind of a joke, like there's a comic or a meme or something where basically these Terminators are they're going to kill this guy, and then the one says, "No, don't kill him. He said thanks to us." Like that. Yeah, yeah, thanks. You say thanks to her, huh? Yeah. I still kind of act like it's it really, so I don't say he or her sometimes. It kind of depends though, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, thanks for stopping in, John. And you can come in anytime you want. You can come in, you can pop out. Not a big deal. Glad to have you. And like I said, I stream most weekdays. Occasionally, I have a bonus stream, which is basically at night. I'll get on. I won't. I don't know how to say it. I kind of advertise sort of. I go into Discords and I say when I'm streaming live, and I do that every Monday. But most of the time, I don't even say anything. But so the ones at night or on the weekend are usually when I get some extra time. It's not for any specified time or time limit or anything. It depends on how much time I have at the end of the night. So occasionally I'll do that, especially when I'm trying to catch up like I did today. So anyways, yeah. So thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you tomorrow. If you're on, I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you the next time I see you. Okay. Thank you for watching part 2. Okay.